Hey folks, Gwe. Yeah, so we're going to talk about some pastors today. We're going to talk about some guys today. Pastors is up in the air. That's questionable. You've heard of a guy named Greg Locke down Tennessee way. Greg has a large following. He is a social media presence. I recently read an article about him, a little bit of a bio on him. This has been his thing. This is his goal, is to become a social media personality as a representative of Christ. And he's got some 2-point-some odd million followers. For the sake of this video, though, we're going to round that up. We're going to say 3 million followers. Now, for the last many weeks, really ever since the election, he's been hitting 2 major themes in his sermons. The first is that Donald Trump didn't lose. And the second is that COVID isn't a thing. And his sermons have pretty much been focusing on some aspect of one of those 2 major themes. Now, recently, he said that he would kick anybody out of his church that walked in with a mask. He told his people, he gave his opinion about the vaccines. Dangerous opinion. And he told people not to believe the hype about the Delta variant. This is his message to the world. And CNN recently picked up on this. Now, actually, for the record, CNN has done stories on this guy on a fairly regular basis. He is a treasure trove for them. He's like a go-to that they can bring him up online and they can find a story to write about him. He's kind of their poster child for the Christian faith. A fellow that I follow on YouTube, David Dole, The Rational National. He recently did a story, and I'm going to be, so he recently did a story called Pastor Poopy Hands. Story about a California pastor. I full disclosure, I didn't watch the entire video. I got to the point where the pastor started talking and then I stopped. See, the video was about a pastor in California who used dog poop as a prop in his sermon. He literally reached in and smushed it around. I like eating with my fingers. I like finger food. I can't ever imagine touching food again after I've purposefully put my hands. Anyway, he thought dog feces was the way to go. And so David Dole did a story on that. These are the types of people that make the news for the Christian world. These are the types of people that international media gravitate to and promote and show the world. These are the types of people that the media takes and offers to the world and says, hey, this is what a Christian looks like. These are the loudest Christian voices. It's not necessarily those stories that I try to share on a regular basis, like the Episcopalian Church in New Mexico or the one in Oregon who are trying to do right by their neighbors, trying to help the poor, trying to help the burdened. It's not, the media doesn't show images or do stories like that story I did about the church in a former Soviet republic who made themselves available to the LGBTQ community in that place. They don't talk about all the good that are being done by Christians and congregations. Because stories about guys like Greg Locke and Pastor Poopy Hands there in California, they get the clicks. People want to see that stuff. People gravitate to that stuff. You know, I was thinking about the scripture. Where does Jesus ever warn us about this kind of thing? And I thought, well, no, but this wasn't Jesus' example either. Right? Jesus didn't offer his ministry in this way. He didn't need to make a spectacle of himself in order to get people interested in what he was offering. His words were enough. His lessons, his teaching was enough. His way was enough. The work he was doing with the poor, the work he was doing with the sick, it was enough. He didn't make a big spectacle of himself. He didn't stand up and demand that the world pay attention to him. No, he was soft and he was gentle. And I know that rubs people the wrong way. There's Christians out there who say, well, we need more Christian warriors, but that isn't Christ. And I know that some of the arguments might be, well, but Jesus flipped the table. He sure did. Jesus absolutely, he walked into the temple, he lost his ever-loving mind for a few seconds, he flipped the table and he kicked everybody out, made a whip of cords and beat folks and got them out of that temple. Very angry. But this wasn't his go-to play. This wasn't what he did on a regular basis. What Jesus did on a regular basis was soft and it was gentle and it was loving. He taught. He offered himself. He shared what he had. He encouraged others to do the same. If Jesus' go-to had been violence, if it had been making a public spectacle of himself, that moment in the temple that so many people are so quick to point to, it loses all of its significance. Because it's just another one of the many times that Jesus freaks out. It's just one of many times that Jesus makes a spectacle of himself. And quite honestly, from a cultural, from a religious perspective, if that had been his go-to move, he becomes a nuisance to the people around him. He becomes a really, really poor ambassador of God. And when the Pharisees finally do silence him, regardless of the work that he had done, nobody really cares because he's just some firebrand spitting nonsense and causing a commotion. This isn't Jesus' way. It's not Jesus' way at all. We don't need, as pastors, priests, teachers, evangelists, prophets, healers, apostles. We don't need to make a commotion. We don't need to make a spectacle of ourselves. We need to offer the message that Jesus offered. We need to do our best to do the work that Jesus did. We need to encourage those around us to join us in that teaching and in that work. Every day doesn't have to be thunderbolts and lightning. Not every day has to be fire and brimstone. Not every day has to be Donald Trump. Not every day has to be attacking a minority or attacking a vulnerable group of people. Not every day has to be smearing dog poop all over ourselves. Every day has to be love, though. Every day has to be Jesus. Not just the things he said, but every day we need to act like Jesus. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that as you and I go forward as ambassadors for God, in whatever capacity that may take, we'll remember to be loving, charitable, kind. We'll remember that we don't have to be a public spectacle in order to do important, life-changing, transformative work in our world. Amen. Nemultus.